we'll bring in Paul Murray from Washington, D.C. as we build toward this. Paul, I guess why didn't she do this last night? Save people from coming back?
Look, I've got to say, I thought a decision not to do it was pretty weak. I can use a lot stronger adjectives, but I'm going to be polite because people are starting off on their day. Look, she was applying to be President of the United States, to supposedly take on, China, Russia, but she didn't have the strength to be able to walk out and have a look at tens of thousands of people in the cold in Washington and say, hey, thank you so much for your support. Instead, she sort of wanted to rob history of this of a loser moment. Think of it like the Stephen Miles scenario in Queensland. I think it's terrible. Is it January 6th? No, but essentially that was the moment that she should have done it. But I tell you what, this White House behind me, I'm standing by at any moment for the under new management sign to be unfurled.
Paul, a short time ago, the motorcade drove past us for the first time today. So obviously Donald Trump, he's had a busy campaign, so he deserved a bit of a lie-in or a sleep-in. So it's on the move. Perhaps very soon he'll be on his way to DC. Well, there has been an invitation this morning from President Biden anyway, and on a date that's yet to be announced. But despite all of that, we're still watching the numbers tick over. And what was expected to be a close contest, well, in the end, it's going to be a landslide. There's the clean sweep of the blue wall. There's almost a clean sweep of 7 battleground states. That's probably going to happen. And then you've got the presidency, the popular vote, the Senate, and the House. I mean, you might know better than me when the last time that kind of clean sweep happened.
Look, you'd have to go back to say, well, actually, in 2016, he was able to have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Biden in his first 2 years had all 3. But the popular vote connections for a Republican, you've got to go back to George Bush in the election of 2004. Of course, an election held in and around the beginnings of the response to Afghanistan and a reaction, of course, to the events on September 11. Before that, you've got to go back to Reagan. So it's a sweet spot to be as a Republican. It's a rare spot to be. And as no doubt you've mentioned today, there's a particular bit of footage where, I get it, when your team loses a footy game or a political contest, you go looking for the silver linings, right? You may have heard me say a couple of times after the 2022 election, I was particularly focused on Christina Keneally losing, right? But the point with this is that there's no silver lining because she didn't improve on his vote anywhere. Nowhere. From the whitest of leftiest parts to the deepest, darkest parts of the South, mate. She did not improve. In fact, she went backwards in huge areas.
I mean, that is an extraordinary statistic. Not one county where she improved on Joe Biden's numbers. So what do you put that down to? With more time to reflect on it, Paul, what do you put that down to?
Okay, asterisk, the CNN suggested that it was improving by more than 3%, okay? And obviously the margins in those areas. But yeah, what they showed was not a county anywhere above a 3% change. I think that the reality is that Trump announcing his run in 2022 meant that the gorilla was in the room and no Republican was able to ever get into a position to challenge him. Remember, of course, a large collection of people wanted to move on from Trump and said, we've got to go somewhere else. They tried DeSantis, but when Trump was in the room, he owned it straight away with the Republican Party. And he effectively was also able to be the de facto leader of the Republican Party, therefore the opposition leader, for 2 years, the worst 2 years of the Biden presidency. The hardest 2 years of inflation, the worst 2 years of the border. So I think that, yes, you can look back at iconic moments. You can look back at the assassination. You can look back at Robert Kennedy endorsing him. You can look back at Obama waving his fingers at young African-American men. But the reality was that people were hurting, and he was able to point to it and promise a better future. And an election campaign that is just, 6 weeks in our country, it was 2 years here. And he pounded and he pounded and he pounded and he pounded. And as I said, every swing state has now backed him in. Incredible. Hired in 16, fired in 20, rehired by a bigger margin in 2024. It's a phenomenal story that you can add not enough superlatives to, because for once they all actually tell the story.
No. It is a story for the ages, and you have broadcast it like the true professional you are. Paul, appreciate that. Thank you.